One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.
So the traditional role of an agent started in the entertainment world in Hollywood probably 75 to even 100 years ago. And they were responsible for pitching talent to movie studios to get their clients' opportunities on the screen. Then it evolved into the sports world where players started to be represented when contracts became much more complicated than they are today after the Catfish Hunter and kind of Kurt Flood era when the professional unions were established. Sports agents kind of came in because contracts no longer were standard. The whole world of coaching representation is really something that has only been around for 10 or 15 years. And in that, there is a fledgling industry of representation of athletic administrators, including ADs and even front office personnel on the professional side. The issue is that if you are, say, an agent, quote unquote, for an athletic director, the question is, who are you really pushing your client to? Most university presidents, while they may deal directly in an athletic director search, don't really have the time nor the willpower to want to speak to an agent, and much less, they may not even understand what an agent could be pitching them. And so what we have seen is that most athletic directors who are making above the six-figure range, and a lot of them are now in the seven figures, have hired attorneys, for the most part, who deal in either representation of coaches or other individuals on the athletic level, but also who deal potentially in representing presidents from a legal standpoint, or universities from a legal standpoint, and who can look at a contract in a higher education setting and understand the implications that are involved for their client, but also who may have some relationships with search firms who can sit down and, just like I do with my coaching clients, talk about the cultural fit that an administrator has at a university and why they may work well for a particular opening. So it's not like you have an agent like a Jerry Maguire or somebody that's sitting there trying to push their client for a particular AD opening. Usually they're working more with the client to advise them on it than they are working with the university, but sometimes they may deal directly with the university or search firm and really trying to establish whether or not a client of theirs has a good cultural fit and can be successful in a particular position. I think it's going to become very accepted, and I think that in reality it's probably a good idea for athletic directors to have some sort of representation. And to be honest with you, I think most of them do in some context. But, look at it from this perspective. When I work with a coaching client of mine, and after we have placed that client or I have negotiated their contract, I may not do anything from a legal perspective for them for many years. If they're very successful, they may stay at an institution for years and years, and they really don't need my work from a contractual standpoint anymore. But it doesn't mean that my job is done. And I talk to my clients on an ongoing basis, just like I talk to a lot of athletic directors on an ongoing basis, about the issues that they're dealing with day-to-day on their job, whether it's dealing with a player or dealing with an assistant or an administrator within their department that they need to figure out whether or not they're going to keep around or do they have to terminate, talking about building culture within their organization, leadership, all of that. And so you want to have a group of people, so to speak, a board of advisors that are out there advocating for you, but also working with you to make you a better individual. And just like many people have individuals in their life that they lean on from a business and personal perspective, that's really all that an agent is in the sports world. And so it's not just about having somebody represent you and advocate for you when it comes to how much money you're making, but also making sure that you're in a good position to succeed once you do take a position and are there for a while. Something that I have been very careful to avoid in my career is conflict of interest. And so if I am an attorney who is representing a coach and I have an athletic director that's also one of my clients, it puts me in a very difficult position to say, go to my athletic director client and tell them that they should hire my other client, right? Because I'm conflicted. And if something doesn't go right, for example, that coach isn't successful, well, then I have just put my athletic director client in a precarious position for choosing to listen to my advice in that context. And in fact, as an attorney, because of the moral conduct rules that we have, that would technically potentially put my license at risk to be representing multiple people in a transaction like that. So I think there's going to be a fine line, but I can tell you right now that there are people out there that do that. There are people that go out and they build relationships with athletic directors and they work with them in some kind of representation context, and they use that to potentially place their coaches. And we see that a lot on the professional sports level, where a agent may represent a coach and represent a player, and they use the opportunity of them having that coach as a client to get their player a tryout or get them signed on a team. And obviously that may end up in a very bad situation if things don't work out on either end. Personally, I think it's the same context as when an assistant coach somewhere calls me and says, I need to hire you because I need to get a head job. And I tell my clients, I tell prospective clients, I tell coaches in general all the time, an agent will not get you a job. And any agent that says that they can get you a job is an agent that is lying to you. My job is to prepare my clients for success. It's to help them build their brands and get their name out there. But I can't get my client a job. Maybe I can help them get an interview or position them in a place where they can, have an opportunity to pursue a job opening. But I'm not going to get somebody a job. And what I can see happening is somebody that wants to play a game of representing administrators go to a young athletic director somewhere or associate AD and say, hey, I can represent you and I can get you an interview somewhere. And what's going to end up happening is that they're going to end up hurting them in the long run. They're going to hurt their brand, because unless you have a relationship with somebody, unless AD at X school calls me and says, hey, Jason, I need to fill my external relations position. Do you know of somebody that I should be looking at? Which happens sometimes. I can recommend somebody in that context. And usually there is no contract negotiation. There is no opportunity for me to financially benefit from such a situation. It's simply me doing something really out of the kindness of my heart. But again, there is a relationship building aspect there for me as well, because if the person that I recommend is successful, then that AD is going to come to me eventually and say, hey, can you recommend somebody else? Or now we're looking for a coach for a particular position. Do you have a client of yours that we can work with? But I would be very, very, very wary as an AD, particularly somebody that is not an actual athletic director, but only an assistant or associate or whatever, and having somebody push me for particular positions. Just like I am very wary when I talk to assistant coaches and tell them, probably the worst thing you can do right now is hire an agent. What you should really be doing is networking and building relationships with other head coaches and with athletic directors, so that when they are looking for a coach, they know who to call.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.